Hello there, my name is Matt Lees, and today I'm going to be making a very short video about Bloodborne. Lots of people hate Dark Souls and Demon Souls, and they were like, oh, fuck that game, it's crap. Well, they weren't, they're really good. But no, I appreciate where you're coming from. But maybe you'd like Bloodborne, maybe you wouldn't. Let's try and work it out. Is it possible that you could hate Dark Souls, but actually get on quite well with Bloodborne? Really, this depends on what you hated about Dark Souls or Demon Souls. Many people, and it's fair enough, got really annoyed by the sheer number of options going on at the start. You know, in Dark Souls you've got all of these different armor things you could find, and you keep finding more and keep finding more weapons, and you're never told how to use any of this stuff, and so sometimes you'll find weapons that seem crap, and it's because you don't really know how to use them effectively, or armor which you don't quite understand how all of the stats work, so you don't know what to use, and it was confusing, admittedly, and I really enjoyed the process of learning it all, but I can understand some people just go, I don't want to deal with that. So Bloodborne is immediately far more streamlined. You know, right off the bat you've got less equipment, you've just got a set of armor, and you find other sets of armor, but to begin with, don't worry about that. Just, you've got black stuff, you wear that, it's fine. There are less weapons, you get to choose from a handful at the start, but then after that, you know, the progression in terms of finding new weapons is a lot simpler, and the weapons you get are really good at the beginning, and they're kind of difficult to master, but they're all really good. Generally, the whole process is just streamlined. It's rare that you find new stuff, and you tend to find new stuff in the game at a much more manageable pace in terms of having time to go onto a menu and read the description and try and work out what it does. Most of the time you kill enemies, you just find the same handful of items. Just lets you kind of find your feet, get into the groove of things, as opposed to Dark Souls, which quite quickly just started introducing you to a whole wide variety of ideas and things, and it was kind of a bit more complicated to get your head around at first. And the streamlining in Bloodborne is very true of the enemies too. It's a tough game right from the start, it really is, it's difficult. Crucially though, there are a lot less cheap tricks going on in Bloodborne. I mean, I did enjoy the fact that in Demon Souls and Dark Souls, much of the game was about learning the terrain, understanding how to get around situations. It almost required some sort of like World of Warcraft raid style knowledge of being like, well yeah, but if you run straight along down here and keep to the wall, then you won't have any trouble, or if you go around here and do this, or you step forward 3 feet and then you roll backwards. There was lots of things like that you picked up through failure that were kind of an integral part of the way that the Souls games have played in the past. In this, there is less of that. There's much more stuff here. It's much more fluid. You've got patrolling foes, which means it's less about learning the areas by heart, although there is a degree of remembering where enemies are, etc. It's more about being adaptable in combat and picking your fights wisely and just trying to maintain more of a sense of awareness about your surroundings. And so I think that is something that is quite different from the Souls games. I think a lot of people get annoyed at the idea that in Souls you have to be very careful all the time because there might be traps or there might be things you don't know, and so it got you into the habit of expecting to be dicked on constantly by the game in a way which wasn't fair, whereas Bloodborne does feel immediately a lot more fair. Sure, there are bits where people, things jump out at you, but largely it does feel a lot less cheap. The next thing which a lot of people may have been put off by in the Souls games was the kind of fighting system. I love the combat in Souls. It felt very considered, quite slow, and it had a really unique physical sense how things handled. You had to kind of enemies with shields, you have to carefully get around them. It was a fascinatingly deep and well put together system, but at the same time I can understand why some people didn't get on with it, especially if you've come from a background of just playing, third-person action games a lot. It required a lot of you. It required you to think about weaponry in quite an in-depth way, which is, a lot to ask of people. Bloodborne is really different in that it quite simply rewards aggression, and it rewards sloppiness to a degree. If you've ever been reasonably good at third-person action games or a fighting game, then you can probably be good at this. I mean, I say it rewards sloppiness, that's not entirely true, but it's simple things like if you keep swinging after you finish killing something, then the hits that land after that will continue to restore some of your health if you're in that kind of window in which after you lose health you've got like a couple of seconds, and if you hit the enemies quickly you can get that health back. Just the way the game rewards you for overswing, for basically like, making a mistake. You don't need to keep hitting an enemy, it is dead, but it will reward you for that. It's just sort of an undertone that changes the game, is you still get punished for mistakes, and you still get punished quite harshly for messing up, but at the same time, you can afford to be a little bit more reckless and messy and really get into things. It just seems to be a bit more willing to play ball with the kind of player who has a bit more a tendency to hammer buttons. Finally, I'd say that one of the other differences is that Bloodborne is far less obtuse than the Souls games have been. I mean, the thing is, mostly in Bloodborne it sort of keeps things quite simple. Other times it simply tells you things, which is something that the Souls games have never really done. And I'm talking mainly here in terms of, plot and development and that sort of thing. Souls was 100% about the kind of atmosphere. You got this bleak fatalism. What's going on? Where am I? What's the point in all this? Fuck knows. I mean, you quite easily can finish the entire game and still have no bloody idea what was going on, why you were there, or really what you were doing. I mean, lots of people will say, well, that's ridiculous, there was loads of story and all the items and stuff. Yeah, but admittedly, some people, myself included, can't be bothered to sit and read all of the item descriptions, and you just want to get some sort of feel of what was going on. Don't get me wrong, for me, the atmosphere enough and this weird, bleak place was enough to keep me enticed, but some people want more than that. I get that. Now, Bloodborne is atmospheric too, right? But it goes for a much clearer horror-style vibe. Immediately you know everything you need to begin with. Anyway, you're a hunter, right? Hunters are required to kill wolf-style beasts, right? And for some reason, humans turn into these wolf-style beasts over time. It's apparently got something to do with blood, and you've apparently got to help sort things out a bit by getting out there and covering yourself in blood and delicious meaty chunks. I mean, in Bloodborne, even when you don't really know what you're doing, and you're just sort of going around killing things, you're still vaguely on the right track. I mean, are you killing wolf things? Yes. Good job. Then you are doing your job as a hunter. I mean, you compare that to Dark Souls, and right at the start, it was like, are you getting lost and getting murdered by things? Yes. Well, good job. You are playing Dark Souls. So yeah, Bloodborne versus the Dark Souls and Demon Souls games, it basically just makes more of an effort with you from the start. In terms of the story and the setting, it makes more of an effort to kind of give you a hand and be like, look, this is generally what's going on. It makes more of an effort not to overwhelm you with too many items and too many weapons and too many things at the start of the game. Also, this is tied into the fact that you've got an item menu system and an equipment system, which is it's still not perfect, but it's a lot more simple. You can just basically go in, quickly change equipment, you can look into the item, but it's not too much of a mess. And some of the techniques it uses, like the gem system for upgrading your weapon, is familiar. It's not as strange and alien as a lot of stuff which previously, stuff in the Souls games tends to be. So yeah, if you played Demon Souls and Dark Souls and you just got really fucked off with cheap tricks and not being able to work stuff out and having to really pay attention to the environment and your terrain in order to get past anything, and if you got really annoyed by the fact that it was just incredibly obtuse, both in terms of the story and in terms of the item description and in terms of the constant bombardment of items, then this is a much smoother curve to get into it. Also, the combat is a lot more third-person Devil May Cry style. You can get good at it without having to really have an understanding of medieval weaponry and combat tactics. Having said that, it is still bloody hard, and the loading times at the moment are still an absolute pain. So if you're not up for a challenge, and you don't like being killed, and you don't like losing, then maybe stay the hell away. But if it's the other stuff I've mentioned which really pissed you off about the Demon Souls and Dark Souls games, then I think that Bloodborne does make some good efforts to make itself a lot more accessible, and it may well be worth a look. Anyway, I hope this video has been useful as some sort of vague guide, and thank you very much for watching. Bye!